Hi, and I'm Martin at the Crossroads. Martin Anthony is my name, and you know, a crossroads can be a physical place on the ground, or it can even be like this tower behind me that's sending information to make our world a better place. Come into the studio. I have a great guest for you tonight. Welcome to the show. I'm Martin Anthony, and Martin at the Crossroads has a history of, as I said, outside. The crossroads can be on the ground, it can be in the air, it can be pretty much anywhere you find it, because it's mostly a state of mind. And tonight, I have Chelsea here. And Chelsea, I met you, but you haven't met me until tonight, because I saw your presentation at the Comox Big House.
Yes.
And your presentation was wonderful, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Given the fact of the situation, I know that at one point a whole bunch of people started showing up, which may have been a problem or not. But welcome to the show. Who's Chelsea? Who's Chelsea Walkus?
Glachbach Nugwa. My name is Glachba. It means whales surfacing at the mouth of an inlet. That's an Uganda name. Gayalach Nugwa. Wanuk du Waglesla du Shumho. I'm introducing myself and where I'm from, and I'm using landmarks, and this is something I explained in my presentation. Right. I'm using landmarks, so I come from the Wanuk River in Rivers Inlet, the Shumaholt River in Rivers Inlet, and Waglisla is a river in Bella Bella. And the reason why I decided to use that in the end was because our people generally come from the land. We come from the land, we come from our territory, and we are part of that. And instead of saying Hastoch, I come from the Hastoch Nation or the Uikinuk Nation, those are very recent ideas. A nation or a town or a community or a reserve, they're very recent ideas. So in the end, I decided to say that I come from parts of my land.
This is fascinating. I grew up in the West Coast and around Vancouver, and I've traveled, and I did not know that actually, because to be part of the land is something really important. Is that in you every day? Do you wake up in the morning going, I'm part of the land, or is there?
It's not something that I think about when I wake up, but it is something that that I carry with me every day. It's something that I walk with every day, and me living away from my community and living away from my people and my land, it's always been a struggle. I've always felt a little bit of me was missing. I always felt a little bit of me was off whenever I live off of my reserve.
Right.
But it's definitely something that you carry with you, and we're always taught to represent who you are wherever you go, and it'll show in how you present yourself. So.
Oh, that's fascinating. I know that having been away from Canada for a number of years, I've come back and I've kind of have wide open eyes, and I see even the land where I was born, it's different. Now, something special that you did, and was that from this little town where you traveled halfway around the world?
Yes, I traveled to the other side of the world. I was in a village called Bandali. It was in the district of Chibuye in Uganda. And I was there for 4 months. I lived in a little hut with no running water, no electricity. We had to go probably only about a kilometer away to get our water and pump our water from a borehole. And
wow.
Yeah.
I always like to ask this question when someone's traveling. What was your first impression, and what was your preconceived perception of where you were going?
I had tried to go there with an open mind and not have an idea of what I was getting into, and that was a part of the fun of it. Was just I knew I was going to this beautiful place, and it was actually always a dream of mine was to go somewhere and get to know the people, get to know their ins and outs of their everyday life. Instead of going somewhere and doing touristy things, I wanted to get to know the people, and I guess that was maybe my only only expectation going. I knew it was obviously it was going to be hot. You're going to Africa, and it was going to be beautiful. But when I first got there, it kind of surprised me at how busy everything was, and how many people were there, because we went to we stayed in a city called Jinja on the weekends, and that's where we first went, and yeah.
Oh yeah. So compared to your home here and the village there, bigger, smaller? What was
the everything, like other towns were within walking distance. So Bendali was close walking distance to Chibuye, which was kind of like the central part of that district. So the town itself was probably about this, generally the same size as Rivers Inlet, but Rivers Inlet is very isolated. There's about 50 to 60 people who live there, and you could only access it through boat or plane.
right?
Whereas Bendali, you could walk over to a closer market. You could take a bike, or what they call motorcycles as bodabodas, or matatu was a taxi, like a van. And so everything was very closer and easier accessible for us, like
Right.
people who were visiting. Locals, it was a little bit more harder for them to get in and out.
Right. Okay. How long were you there?
I was there for 4 months.
4 months.
Yes.
Wow. So you picked up some of the language, I think.
A very little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it remarkably different, or?
Yeah, it was, but it flowed fairly easily. Yeah.
So you speak English.
Yes.
And your other languages?
Haltsik and Wikinuk. Sadly, I don't speak very much of it. I grew up a lot around the culture, and I grew up a lot around the singing and the dancing and connection. But the language is very. We have very few fluent speakers. And it just started to occur to me recently how important that language is, and part of that came from my experience in Uganda. We did 3 weeks of orientation, and a man came in, and he did a presentation on how important it is to preserve that culture. And then I started paying more attention to our elders speaking about how important our language is and how important it is to revive it. And it's also been very hard for me to keep that aspect of my life alive, because I've been on and off reserve so much, and leaving the reserve, there isn't other fluent speakers. And there isn't access for me to have it into my daily life.
Right.
So it's hard for me to keep that apart. But there are very similar languages, all the way from Kwakwala to Haisla. They're very similar, just different dialects. So that's an idea I've had, was to learn a little bit of Kwakwala, because there's Kwakwala fluent speakers in Comox Valley, and just so that when I have an opportunity to live in Bella Bella, then it would be easier for me to pick up the Haystock language,
Right.
or
Okay.
the Wikinuk language. Yeah.
Well, Chelsea, if you give me a moment, I'm just going to say, speaking of communications, we're going to just go for a little bit here to show you how to contact us here at the show, and with Shaw Access, and we'll give you a few moments with that. And there you have it. That's how you get in touch with us. And Chelsea, it's whenever I meet someone who's like traveled, is it your first time traveling a long distance like that, or have you world experience with travel?
Not a whole lot. I've been around the States a couple times, all over BC. The furthest other than that was Cuba, but it was resort staying, and that's something I don't think I'll do again for quite a while, until maybe I'm a bit older. But it's my first lengthy stay away.
Right.
Yeah.
What impact did it have on your life?
I feel more me. I feel like I'm me, but more amplified. I have a lot more confidence in myself. I have a lot more happiness and a lot more content.
Yeah.
I'm very content with myself,
Yeah.
and I feel like I laugh a lot more now,
Yeah.
and I feel very connected.
Who is me then? Like what makes you you? What's that extra me? I know you just explained, but
Yeah.
I want to go a little more deeper on that one.
I feel a lot more secure in my culture. I feel a lot more secure in being an Indigenous woman, being a Haystack and a Weekenook woman, and that was generally what my presentation was about. I talked a lot about carrying shame in being the little Indian girl, and I mentioned that a lot. Is that growing up on and off reserve, I moved back and forth between Bella Bella and Nanaimo most of my life for school. My mother was a university student, and every time we'd leave, I mentioned earlier, every time I'd leave, I felt like I left, like a part of me wasn't with me. A part of me was missing whenever I left off reserve. So it was hard to be secure in being a Heiltsuk girl, being a Weekenook girl, and being an Indigenous girl. And I always felt like that little Indian girl. I always felt like I was separated from the general population. And there is still a lot of racism, but I think me looking like a Native woman, a Aboriginal person, a lot of it was indirect. Whereas people who I went to school with who may not look as their features, their Indigenous or their Native features may not be as strong as mine, and people don't suspect that they're First Nations. They get a lot of direct racism, and they get a lot of comments where they'd say something about an Aboriginal and say a racial comment, and I've had friends who would correct them and say, "Well, I'm Native. What are you talking about?" And then they say, "Oh, but not you. You're cool. Don't worry about it. You're cool."
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah. So
that's so.
I a lot of people I know went through that, whereas I had a lot of indirect. Right. So I myself separated. I separated myself from the general population, and I stuck to other First Nations groups. And I always felt shy. I always felt a little bit of shame in looking like that little Indian girl. And going kind of made me secure with that. Made me feel a little bit more happy with myself, more content with myself, and happier. You know, I laugh a lot now.
Yeah, that's so wonderful to hear. You know, that was what moved me in your speech, or your presentation last week, and it was just such a, to see that smile on your face was really good. That you found something in that. Now, it doesn't just sort of happen by chance. Someone just didn't say, "Here's tickets to go to Uganda." Now, there's this organization that you went there through. Can you tell me a little bit about the organization? VIDEA,
it's Victoria International Development Education Association, and it's a Canadian-wide organization. They're based out of Victoria. I saw an ad on Facebook, and I figured I'd apply. I was 1 out of 10 Aboriginal youth chosen from across Canada to participate in this. And we did a 3-week orientation where we just learned a lot about cultural sensitivity, and we learned a lot about being environmental friendly, eco-friendly, fair trade, culture, language. They did a lot about like self-knowledge as well, and it really helped set us up to go there and be gentler in how we present ourselves there, be gentle in how we treat them. And their goal is that we went over there and we integrated into the culture. We weren't there as volunteers. We weren't there as we didn't do the volunteer tourism. Generally, that looks like I'm going to go and I'm going to help these people and I'm going to give so much to them and then I'm going to feel better about it.
Right.
Where whereas we went there and we just they try to get us to integrate into the culture, and it was more about, I felt it was more about our personal growth.
Right.
And just helping them get motivated, bringing new ideas. There wasn't a whole lot I could teach all of Uganda or all of Chibuya or all of Bendali for that matter. There wasn't a whole lot that me as one person could offer, but the things that they were able to offer to me was incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just thought this just now, which is, were there any stereotypes that they had of you in advance?
Oh yes, big time. And they called all kind of Westerners Mzungus. To them, that was the white man. But I had to explain a few times that I'm not technically white.
You're not a Mzungu.
But to them, I was. I was an outsider coming in, and I that's more the general term for that is a Mzungu. But we got asked questions like, are we more immune to HIV? Are we more immune to different types of diseases like malaria? Someone, like they thought we were more creative, they thought we were more smarter, they thought we were more all of this. They had this fabricated idea of who we are coming from Canada. They thought we were all incredibly rich and incredibly smart and all this. But and after 4 months of hearing this, there was one of the teachers, his name was John Paul, and he was convinced he was going to have a Mzungu wife, and they all have this idea and this fantasy of having a Mzungu wife and or Mzungu husband, and he was convinced that Mzungu babies are born smarter than Ugandan babies. Wow. And after hearing that a number of times throughout the months I was there, I was upset because seeing these people, they were incredibly hardworking. They were the most hardworking people I've seen and most resilient people for the things that they go through in their daily life. Some of them have to walk a few miles to get to work or to get to school. And the dedication they have to education is ecstatic. We were all so incredibly inspired at how hard these students work just to make it to school and to have an education, because they have to pay to go to school, and they work so hard. Whereas a lot of people here dread going to school. Yeah, and it's like pulling teeth getting some kids to go to school. There they want to go so bad, and they're incredibly smart. Some of their children were probably maybe just as smarter than us going there. Some of them were bilingual, trilingual, and I got a little bit upset finally at the end, and I said, John Paul, I am not smarter than you. There's nothing that I do that's better than you. We are the same, and I was quite upset, and I tried not to show it too much, but I had to tell him. We almost got into an argument where I just kept saying, I'm not smarter than you. Mzungu babies aren't born smarter. We don't have any special kind of immunity just because we're the color of our skin or something like that. Yeah. So they had this big fabricated idea of who we were. And
that's incredible. So you became the ambassador of being a human on the planet, not something better or lower or anything. You really had to. It sounds like it was a bit of a struggle, actually, to constantly sort of tell people this. That's fascinating. Yeah. That's really fascinating that you had that experience. What was the best part? What was the best part of going over there? What was the best memory? Is there one little memory that sort of stands above all? I know the whole trip was probably wonderful, but is there one little thing that was a little more?
I would say the best day was our last day. Of course, like you said, there's so many things that were incredible about being there. But the last day, we had a big dinner. Well, I guess maybe even the last week. I think it was the Tuesday night. We had at the end of the night, we all just sat outside one of the cook's hut, and we just sat around and sang and danced. And some of the kids were banging on jerry cans, and we just sang for hours. sang and danced, and the way the kids moved and the way the people moved over there was incredible. How much they loved singing and dancing. And the first time I seen one of the children dancing and like how they were able to move their body, it was almost like, oh, I shouldn't be looking at this. This might be a little inappropriate, but I can't not look. They're incredible. Quite a few of us felt the same way, and then it's just a part of their culture. Yeah. It's just a part of what they love to do. Yeah. And all in that last week, another day I spent with the women tailoring, doing the last little bits of things, and throughout the last few weeks, I'd say about the last 3 weeks, I tried to pull away more and more towards the end from being there, a part of the tailoring project, which is what I did. I didn't introduce what I did there. I try to slowly remove myself from that so that when I left, they weren't still fully dependent on someone there to tell them what to do. Mm-hmm. I try to allow them to do that themselves. Right. So I try to spend time with the women as well. Mm-hmm. One day I just sat under, a lot of times we spent sitting underneath this tree, and we just gave out all this paper and pens and crayons and just allowed all the children to come. And I have this big stack of paper, maybe about this big, of all the children's different drawings and paintings and stuff like that. But the very last day that I had there, we had a big dinner, and we hired a DJ to come, and it was just an outdoor dance, and everybody from Shibuya came, and we just danced for hours all night, and it was just incredible.
That's a wonderful experience. I'm sure that I'm going to ask you some more questions, but right now we're just going to take a little break and go outside. We're going to wander around Campbell River, and I'm going to go and see if I can chase some tourists down and see why they're here. So we'll be right back. Welcome to Campbell River. Where are you from?
We live in Calgary. I'm from Quebec, and they're from Prague in Czech Republic.
Prague, I love Prague. I've been there. And so what brings you to Campbell River?
We're camping, so we're just stopping by because we're on our way to Crofton. So we're just spending the afternoon here and then on our way to Crofton. So.
And what made you come out to the coast? What's the reason behind that?
Camping, the beaches, the trails. We do a lot of hiking. Mm-hmm. So yeah, mostly hiking and beaches.
Any highlights so far?
Yeah, we went on a whale watching tour in Telegraph Cove. We did a lot of hikes in the Comox and Courtenay area, Campbell River, Port McNeill as well. So I think, yeah, the highlights, the trails and the whale watching tour for sure.
Great. So the whale watching, you did whale watching? Yep. Did you see any whales?
Yeah, we saw humpback whales, we saw sea lions, seals, bald eagles. So yeah, it was a good trip.
Excellent. And what's your name?
Alex.
Alex, thanks for talking to me here on my show, The Crossroads, and enjoy the rest of your trip.
Pleasure.
So that was my time wandering around Campbell River. I have Chelsea here, and the dance. Now, you're talking about the dancing that happened there. Now, I experienced something just a little while ago in the big house, and I thought I was going to go like with the solstice, which is an important day for me, and with the Aboriginal Day celebrations in Comox. It was the dance performances. Now, you're involved in that, aren't you? Mm-hmm. And this was something, because I was actually at the end, I was invited down, and me dancing, you don't want to see it, but I had fun. Tell me about your dance, and what your involvement in dance is, and.
Well, I've been a part of our cultural ceremonies my entire life. I've been dancing in big houses and potlatches my entire life, and it's just it's a connection that you have to the spirit world. So if you watch us when we come in, you turn left, and then everything is going around the fire, and it's going left, and it's representing being in the spirit world. When you turn into the spirit world. And when you're dancing, it's a sacred place in the big house and on the dance floor. It's a sacred place where you're with your ancestors and you're dancing. And women have the power to cleanse the floor. So that's what women are coming out to dance. They cleanse the floor and make it a spiritual place. And yeah.
Oh, it was lovely to see. And like you said, coming in, then there's a circle done, and then it goes off, and then the next one comes in as a circle. And I have to ask this because I'm not really a good dancer, and I'll prove it to you someday. But what I find interesting is that, now, where are you when you're dancing? Are you thinking, okay, there's a move here and there's a move here, step 1, 2, 3 kind of thing? Or are you in a more spiritual place? I'm curious because the dance was, it was amazing what I saw.
Where am I? I just try to be present, really, and I feel like I am in this with our spirits, with our ancestors. I feel that way, and it's something that I've been doing for so long that the dancing comes very natural. At times, I have to kind of bring myself back down and make sure I'm doing the right hand motions or something like that. But a lot of times, you become connected and you become a part of the dance floor, a part of, again, maybe a part of the earth, a part of our ancestors, and we're dancing and we're doing things that our people have been doing for thousands and thousands of years, and these are our traditions that are passed down, and maybe that's the place I go to, that the sacred place of being with our ancestors. And I've never been asked that, and I've never thought about it. I go out and I dance.
Yeah. Well, it's something that I will share this, and it's not this. Sitting here now is about you. It's not about me. But I will share one thing with you and the audience, is that I've always had a gathering on the summer and winter solstices. It's always been something. But I'm back to Canada. I've been on my own right now, and I thought, I'm spending the solstice alone. And I happened into the big house. You were speaking. Your presentation was lovely. And then I wound up staying, and I thought it was going to be a short closing ceremony. However, it was 2 hours. And I felt so at home there. And you were performing, and I know as a performer, you're kind of there, you are doing this. We're going to finish very soon. So I'm just going to ask this sort of quick question. When you're performing and you saw the crowd there, because it was a huge crowd, it was packed full. When you're doing the dance, did you feel that connection of these people? Probably a lot of them too. Were sort of first time to see that. Was there a connection with the crowd from where your position? Because I know we were.
No, actually, like I said, you go into that sacred space. You go into a place where you're with your ancestors and you're with the spirit world and you're with the song and this dance and the people you're on. I feel more. I'm more on the floor and I'm more in the big house than with all these people.
Right.
We are actually taught not to look out into the crowd and not to, because you're in the spirit world.
Right.
We're taught not to look out into the crowd and to keep your eyes down and to stay in that space, because you're in that space and it could be dangerous if you look out into the crowd and like people may see different things.
So I guess then it's it is a dance, but it's a spiritual ceremony. Is that what you'd say?
Yeah.
It's been wonderful. I want to talk to you for hours, but we're out of time. And Chelsea, thanks so much for coming down, and we'll definitely see you again. And to all of it there in TV land, thank you for watching. My name is Martin Anthony. This is Martin at the Crossroads, and martinatthecrossroads.tv is how you reach me. Anyways, take care. Have a good day.